which I think is great, but some of them are also doing in person. So I think it was one school district that started back on Monday, this
Okay.
past Monday. Hmm.
Well, for those of you who are already watching us on the live stream, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Catherine Boyle from Key Ministry, and I am just delighted today to be able to introduce our audience to Janet Williams from Autism Speaks. Janet is a person who has had a lot of responsibilities with Autism Speaks. We met about a year ago and actually got to meet in person when face-to-face, in-person conferences were still a thing. That seems like such a long time ago now. But I've just really enjoyed getting to know Janet and a little bit about her story. And so, yeah, Janet, I would just love for you to just talk a little bit about, what you do with Autism Speaks. I know you've done a couple of different things with the organization. So if you don't mind just sharing a little bit about, what your role is there and kind of how you got there too, because I think that's a really interesting story.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine, for having me today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm delighted and so excited to be part of this webinar today. Just want to share that I started off as a volunteer for the Autism Speaks walk, the Atlanta walk, which is where I currently reside, in 2015, which was about a year after my son, who's now 11, was diagnosed with autism. Just trying to get more information to be able to help him, resources that could help him thrive. And so that ultimately led into where I am today. So what ended up happening is that in 2016 and 2017, I was voted in as the volunteer walk chair for the annual Autism Speaks Atlanta Walk, which is in partnership with the Marcus Autism Center here. And so I eventually, in 2017, was hired as an outreach manager, and I supported only Georgia and Tennessee. And then at that point, I was promoted to Director of Community Outreach for all of Mid-Atlantic and South Atlantic, and that was in 2018, which is a role that I currently serve in. But, all of this was because of my passion that I had, again, for wanting to create a better life. My son, his name is Jeremiah. He's an amazing little boy. And that ultimately grew into being able to impact and support thousands of autistic people and their families, and just to love on them and share with them and be an advocate for them, and also a culture champion, for those people who look like me. And so, my role as Director of Community Outreach is to increase our mission delivery by providing information to families and those who have loved ones who are on the spectrum, and providing them with resources through our services and support team, and also by providing webinars. And we do these pathway events, which has a huge focus right now on employment opportunities for autistic people and those with other intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so most recently, I was selected to serve an additional role at Autism Speaks as the co-lead for our diversity, equity, and inclusion plan. I'm also the champion for Autism Speaks Blue Blessings, which is our faith-based initiative, which was created to help faith communities embrace autistic people and their families. Because in many ways, we all know that the faith community is like your extended family, right? It embraces and it nourishes its members with compassion, support and hope. And so we work with these communities to help them create more accepting and understanding support systems, in the schools, employers, as well as the places of worship. So, that's how I got started, and then that's currently where I am right now.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, you've done a lot in a short amount of time. And I was just really impressed when we first met. And we met at a conference that was dedicated to addressing the needs of families and individuals who are on the spectrum in minority communities. Because, we've been well aware that, that things are not always the same, depending on where you live or, what your access is based on income level, all of those kinds of things that play into getting a diagnosis. And, so it was important for us to learn as much as we could about I mean, I think of you guys as being just cutting edge in terms of the, the research and really propelling forward the
Hmm.
opportunities for people who are on the spectrum, and just, you're just champions of hope for the families, who really want what all families want, which is for their kids to thrive
Hmm.
and have a successful life. So, when we met, you also talked about, well, before I jump into your personal experiences, do you want to share anything directly from Autism Speaks now, or would you prefer to share that later? Because I know you have some slides that you're interested in
Yeah,
showing our
we can
audience.
share the slides later. We can talk about that later. We can talk
Okay,
about the personal experiences first.
okay, okay. So, everybody has their own personal experiences. Everybody has good ones and bad ones, but I think it's really helpful to understand what the experiences are of parents who go to church with a child who's on the spectrum. And particularly, and maybe even more so, for families who have a Black child on the spectrum or a other minority child on the spectrum. There may be differences that I think it's instructive for our audience to hear about. And Dr. Gersovich looks like he's joining us, but he can just listen in as we talk for a few minutes. But I mean, just share some of your experiences, Janet. Obviously no identifying information, and this is a good time to just let the audience know, if you have a question that you want to submit in the chat or the live stream, feel free to do that, but just make sure that you're not using identifying information. If you have an experience that maybe was not a good one, and we'll work those questions and comments in as we're able in the conversation. So yeah, Janet, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little of your experience, that would be great.
Thank you. So what I want to start off by saying, autism it has it affects everyone. There's no discrimination when it comes to autism, so regardless of the ethnicity of a person, or where they come from, every person that has an experience, whether they're a caregiver or whether they themselves are on the spectrum, you're presented with certain unique strengths and challenges, for each person that is on the spectrum, and it impacts the family as a whole, and especially for those who care for them. So, research, it's there, and it tells us that Blacks may experience greater barriers and stigmas that are associated, for a child or someone who has a child that is on the spectrum. So because we know, research also tells us that poverty levels are sometimes can be higher, in Black communities and those in non-white communities, and also children of lower socioeconomic statuses are less likely to be diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder than those in other areas. And so when my son was diagnosed, I didn't know a whole lot, and when I started doing my research, I came upon Autism Speaks website and saw all the amazing resources there and just kind of delved into it. But I will tell you that what I didn't realize was that my son had some sensory issues that were more heightened than maybe an atypical child, and so I, you know, all my life, I've been involved in the church. I've served in ministry. I've, been in the choir, praise team leader, served in all of those areas in the church. And so that was just a part of my life. But as my son got older and I started to take him, things started to change. I then realized that doing certain areas, in the church, certain things that were taking place during the service, he would put his hands over his ears or he'd scream out. And at that time, people turn around and they look at you and everybody's eyes are on you. And then
Right.
he also had a lot of other co-occurring conditions such as reflux, and he had laryngomalacia and, just a lot of different things. He had this really loud, noisy breathing. And it was always during the time where the minister would get up and share, that he would fall asleep and his breathing would be even louder during that time. And so people would turn and look at me. It's like, what is wrong with this kid? Or, judge me for saying, you need to take him out. And, the son, your child has a cold and you're not caring for him properly. And it became a challenge. And so, again, as he continued to grow, I started sitting further and further back, in the services so that I could make a beeline out the door in case he screamed or something happened, just so that I wouldn't be or feel like I was disrupting services.
Right.
And I remember this one time as he got older, and I think this was during a time where he was just going through some serious medical issues, and I just kind of taken a step back and decided that I would try it once again. And I remember that day walking in, and I went to a new location, and I walked in, and I was greeted with a smile. I saw this sign that said "Welcome," and I just felt like, oh, this is going to be great. And I walked in the door and I asked if they had a children's ministry, and I was told that they did. And they sent me over to the sign-in desk or the customer desk to, get some help and direct me to where I needed to go. So they ultimately took me upstairs. I had a greeter to, take me upstairs. And as I was checking him in, the lady was asking for his information. And I say, well, do you have a special needs classroom? And she just stopped and she looked at me and she said, no, we actually don't. And I said, okay, so I can't take him into service. You don't have a special needs classroom. What am I supposed to do with him? And she said, well, I don't know. I mean, you can sit out in the hallway.
Oh, good.
And at that moment, my heart just kind of sank to the
Oh,
floor because I was just like, I just want to go to church. I just,
right.
and
Right.
so it became a challenge. And church after church that I would visit, no one had a special needs room, and I didn't know how
Right.
to find them, and I didn't know if they existed. I didn't know they should be even need to be existed. And
Right.
so it was just a challenge for me, and it was tough. And I remember going in my car and I just sat and I just cried, and and I just wanted to go to church. And so it was at that time, after I later got hired on, I was asked to help create a national initiative, for Autism Speaks. And of course, that was the first thing that came to my mind, was that we need to, because as I started doing research, I realized I wasn't the only family that was
Yeah.
impacted
Not
by
by a long
their
shot,
loved
right?
ones. Yeah. And it was like, okay, so this is needed in every single, church, in every single mosque, or every single, synagogue, or every single, Jewish, it's needed all over, because families are hurting and they're needing support and they're needing help. And to eliminate that feeling of loneliness and feeling of not being welcomed and not being cared for, and you're dealing with your own mental health issues at home because
Right.
you have this kid with all of these health issues, and you're trying to find a way, and for even for adults or those who are mildly impacted, give them opportunities,
Right.
in your services, allow them to be part of it. And so that's why Blue Blessings was created, out of that need of being able to provide some type of support or just help, faith organizations understand that this is something that you needed. Because doing my research, what I found was across the country, most faith leaders that I spoke with, they didn't have special needs ministries because they didn't know they needed it.
Right.
And so I think that, it's upon all of us to make sure that we provide a place of welcoming and a place of hope, and a place that you can just love on your families and provide them with the support that they need.
Yeah, I heard a statistic this week in another webinar discussion that we do on Mondays that I think only 11% of evangelical churches in the U.S. have special needs ministry. But, I mean, I don't know off the top of my head the stats on, well, it's like, 1 in 52 or so diagnosed
One in
now. And,
54.
I don't know what what the prevalence is among families across the US, but I know, that for mental health, it's either 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 people have a diagnosis or a
Yes.
diagnosable condition. And so, so it's everywhere. It's
Yeah, it
everywhere. And
is.
so,
It is.
so, so I am thrilled that, that Autism Speaks took the initiative, because you guys have a very large platform, a very large
Hmm.
voice to
Hmm.
speak into this. And I mean, obviously you're ecumenical, but what you have done, I'm sure, has impacted the way a lot of people at least think about what
Hmm.
should be happening
Hmm.
with, with providing worship opportunities and mental health support for the families that, that are in their community, maybe already in their own churches, that, that want to be there, but just find
Yeah.
it really, really difficult. So
Yes. Yes.
if I could just drill down a little bit deeper into the mental health aspect. So you mentioned that, you have had mental health struggles at home
Mhm.
because of
Mhm.
how difficult it
Mhm.
is.
Mhm.
I mean, is this something that, um, does Autism Speaks pay much attention to that aspect of how difficult it is to parent a child in many cases?
Yes.
What the impact is on the parents. I know that there's a lot of co-occurring mental health conditions for individuals who live with autism, particularly on the higher end of the spectrum, because, I mean, how could it not be, something that causes you anxiety or depression if your relationships just don't go the way that you
Mhm.
think that they
Mhm.
should go?
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
who wouldn't be depressed? But I don't know, without looking at your website, if you guys have data on what it's like for parents who are, doing their very best. What are those mental health impacts?
So yes, to answer your question, we do have resources available because we do understand. And one of the things that I love about our organization is that we have so many employees rather, who are in the same situation that I'm in, of raising a child on the spectrum or in some way are impacted by their loved one's autism. And so we each, have our own story to tell. But even the families that we connect with, we have an amazing autism response team, and they are available to answer questions and provide resources in both English and Spanish. Autism Speaks is not a direct service provider, but we have thousands and thousands of on resources that support families and provide this type of support and help direct them to receive help either from a medical provider or to a counselor. And these are resources that we have available that when families reach out to us, and we get these type of requests, and sometimes they're in a crisis mode, where we then have to step in and actually provide them and take it a step further, and stand on the line with them and talking them through it and helping them to understand that, that you're loved, first of all, and that there's help and support that's available for you. Allow us to help you. And so I think that Autism Speaks does a great job of providing those resources. We have a web page that actually lists out, resources, and I think that you can probably share that later. That's a page that talks about behavior and mental health, conditions, and so we'll be able to, provide that resource for these families. Catherine, your screen is frozen. I'm not sure if you can still hear me or not. Catherine. So yes, so we do provide those type of resources. So as we get to that point and she's able to share those screen, we will also be able to share, some of those links with you. We have resources on stress and mental health. We also have free toolkits that are available. And one of the toolkits that we have available is called Supporting Individuals with Autism Through Uncertain Times. We have some blogs about tips on common anxious kids, and we have a lot of resources also that we develop during this pandemic. And one is on coronavirus impact, home all day, basic supports and strategies to help keep us sane. There are some tips on links that we have actually on that COVID-19 page that provides a whole section that is focused on stress and mental health. But if anyone is interested in finding out where that information is, they can always reach out to our autism response team at help, HELP, at autismspeaks.org. So, yes.
Hi, Janet. It's Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Catherine's having a little bit of problem with her Wi-Fi, so we'll just continue talking now.
Yes,
People
absolutely.
listening. So thank you for sharing all those resources, and we will make sure to link those to when we post the recording of this on the Key Ministry website and channels. We'll make sure to post the link. I know that you have some slides to share, but I don't have them. If you would like to share your slides, you can go ahead and do it. Otherwise, as soon as Catherine gets back on, she's coming back on. So,
Okay.
So we'll let you go on with that in just a second. So we'll see if she gets back on here, but there we go. Okay, I'll let you two continue.
Can you hear us, Catherine? Okay, can't hear you. But it's okay. I have I can keep moving.
All right. Do you want to share your slides now? If you'd like to do it, you can do that. Otherwise,
Okay, give me
I will
1 second.
let you, let's see, you can go ahead. I just gave you permission, so you can go ahead and share.
Okay, give me 1 second.
And it looks like Dr. Steve Gersvich is on as well.
Hi, how are you?
I'll bow out again and let you guys talk.
Okay, great. Give me 1 second and I can get those pulled up. Hold on just a second here. All right, I apologize for that. Give me 1 second. Okay, let me see if I can, I don't know if you guys can see. Let me share my screen. All right, so here we go. Here are some resources that we, of course, have available. And I'm going to put them in the slide. Uh-oh, this stopped sharing. Okay, let me try it again.
There we go.
Okay, there we go. All right, so are you able to see them now?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, great. Okay. So as I was talking about, we were talking about Blue Blessings. So this is Autism Speaks Blue Blessings, which is our faith-based initiative that I mentioned earlier. And it's to help increase understanding and acceptance of people with autism within their faith communities, and also to help provide resources to faith leaders and special need ministry leaders to just help make their places of worship more sensory friendly, more autism friendly, and provide all types of resources and support. And so we do have a web page. It's autismspeaks.org/blue blessings, and that's blue blessings with an S. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the screen for our autism response team. Autism Speaks, in addition to having our amazing team, and these are a group of individuals who they support families. Again, they're available between the hours of 9 and 5 Eastern Standard Time, and they'll be able to provide and share information with families about all of our resources. It looks like the bottom part is kind of shaded out, but I'll share the number, and I know that Catherine will share it as well. It's 1-888-288-4762, and then in Spanish we have a number of 1-888-772-9050. And again, you can always reach them at help, HELP, at autismspeaks.org. And so this is the page that I was talking about that we have for stress and mental health. So Autism Speaks, we have some amazing toolkits that are available. There's a webinar that we have posted. It's Coronavirus Impact, Home All Day, Basic Supports and Strategies to get us through and keep us sane. There's some videos for autistic adults. It's called My Tips for Other Autistics During the COVID-19 Pandemic. There's a blog on how to cope with disrupted personal routines during COVID-19. So our autism response team can even help identify support groups that may be local to your specific area. And then for those caretakers, there's some advice for caregivers of children with disabilities. And so there's some self-care resources that are available as well. And this is just a small, just a small sample of all of the resources that we provide as it relates to stress and mental health. And so if anyone, again, wants to access those resources or have a need for them, they can certainly reach out to our autism response team for that information. And so here's some additional information on some of the behavioral resources that we have. As I talked about some of those toolkits that we have available, what you'll see over here in the right section is that what one of the toolkits look like. And these are actually booklets. You can download them for free. All of our resources are free to our families. And so these are just a lot of the resources that we have, how to handle clinical care, doing social distancing and school program closures. Of course, now there are resources that we have available because the schools are starting to open back up. And then there's some blog posts here at the bottom. My son is sometimes, child is sometimes aggressive. What can help? All of these amazing resources that are here to help families cope during this time. So we have tons and tons of these resources. Again, this is just a small sampling, but I would encourage everyone to reach out to our autism response team for more information. Here is a video that I did. It's called Staying Safe During Reopening. It was a video that I recorded just about doing that during the times when those states were just starting to reopen. And of course, we're seeing more of that. So we do have tons of resources that are available, but again, I wanted to share that. So Catherine, before I talk about this slide, if you want to, continue, we can go ahead and continue our conversation.
Okay, well, thanks. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but yeah, thanks for sharing all the great resources. And we, just a reminder, when this is over, then we will share the video on the Key Ministry Vimeo and YouTube pages, and we'll include links to all this information in the description. So it's a lot of great information. If you didn't take screenshots of what Janet was sharing, we'll have it there for you afterwards. Yeah, in fact, just a couple days, a link to one of the pages on your website for finding therapy services by state. And, somebody was not aware that this person was not aware that you guys had that kind of information.
Yeah.
But I mean, you really do have a ton of information for parents, and in particular when they're just getting started and they have no idea, where to turn. It can be hugely helpful.
Listen, we have some amazing. I often stress the toolkits because I think I probably have a copy of each one. We have over 40 free downloadable toolkits, that cover everything from even going to take your child to the doctor to get blood drawn, or, just starting school, and newly diagnosis toolkit. And even for those who are newly diagnosed, we have the 100-day toolkit that is our most popular and has been downloaded over 1 million times. And that toolkit just kind of gives you an overview from start to finish of what to expect in those first 100 days. So the 100-day toolkit is an amazing resource. You can request it, you can download it, and if you can't find it, you can go to the autism response team at help@autismspeaks.org and send them an email, and they will just share briefly what you would like to share, and they will send you tons of resources, tons to help you.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. So, so are you in a church now that has special needs ministry? I'm curious about, we heard some not so great experiences, but what's going on for you now with church?
Yes, yes, I am, and I actually love my church, and they have an amazing, ministry for special education and special needs students, and those with just different abilities, period. And they love on my son. He's happy, he's thriving, he enjoys going, he hates to leave. I have to drag him out. And when I go into some of these places and I see the, the sensory room or the quiet rooms that they have set up, they're, oh my gosh, they're amazing. All of the swings and the bubble lamps and the, just so many cool things that a lot of them have. And granted, there are a lot of organizations that are not able to, afford to have that level, of
Right,
support. But I would encourage, the Blue Blessings, it has information that is just, give you some simple things that you can do, just to, things that you can buy at the dollar store, or just resources that you can have. More than anything, sometimes our loved ones and those who are on the spectrum, sometimes they just need to break away. They just need a quiet space. And if, there are a lot of churches that I have attended and that I continually to attend. They have so many empty rooms that are available on even any given day, and
right,
even during the times in which they have their worship services. Talk to your leader. Find out how and what they can do to have that room used, just so families can be able to break away if
right,
they need to, and have a television monitor set up in there so that they could just sit in there,
right,
and watch services from there. But at least they don't feel like they have to stay at home and that they're not welcome to attend.
right, right. And obviously this is all skewed a bit because of all the COVID stuff, but
Yeah.
for those of you who are watching, we have a weekly idea share that we've been doing since mid-March, and have special needs ministry leaders from across the country who have shared, you know, well, not only their ideas, but also their questions, because everybody's been in various states of lockdown and
Hmm.
reopening. And there's a lot of creative stuff that's being done right now. And so I encourage you, if you haven't checked out the videos that we have on the Key Ministry Vimeo and YouTube pages, go look for our weekly idea shares, and you'll find some great information and ideas for your church.
It is.
So, and just a reminder, if you have questions, please feel free to either submit them in the chat or go ahead and post them on the live stream on Facebook on the Not Alone Parents page. And we will definitely work those in as we're able to. But just so you know, Janet, a couple of folks were really excited to hear about your church, and they, gave the LOL, and, just that it's wonderful that your son, is so happy there, and the things that they've done to just love on him and help him know the love of Christ. So that's
Exactly.
awesome. Well, so you go all over the place. You are a woman on the move. So have you seen a difference, or have you seen, is there any kind of, like, are you seeing ministry for special needs being done better in certain kinds of churches than not? Where would you like to see more attention drawn to special needs ministry? Because like, we have a network, but we're always looking to try to get connected with other networks, because 11% of evangelical churches have special needs ministry. And so, there's just nowhere to go but up in terms of, trying to get people to really, support the needs. That it doesn't have to be big and expensive, like you just said. You guys have simple ideas in the Blue Blessings toolkit. But really, like, where are you seeing differences? Is churches that could really make a big difference in their communities by paying attention to the special needs that are in families around them?
Well, I would say that oftentimes in underserved communities, and also when I attend a lot of churches, especially a lot of Black churches, a lot of them don't have, special, places and supports in place. But they're eager to do it once it's identified that there's an issue. So I'll preface by saying that. So as I make my way, across the country, and I meet with ministry leaders, I would say that a lot of them don't know that they need to even have these type of resources available, because they don't have them, because they don't know they need to. And
Right,
so when I sit down and I talk to them, they're like, well, what can I do to help? What can I do to help my community? But what I want to share, that is more than just a lot of times of having a special needs ministry.
right,
I would like to see ministers, advocate for those, again, with mental health issues, and are in their family, because a lot of families who have children with or loved ones that they're caring for that may have a disability, it can be stressful with all of
Right.
the doctor's appointments and just the caregiving and support that's needed. And it's not the case for everybody who has a disability, but it is certainly the case for a lot of people.
Right.
And so when you provide marriage counseling, then why not also have mental health counseling?
Right.
Those type of resources are so important, because again, when people are in need, especially in those underserved communities, they will actually go to they reach out to their faith for support.
Right.
And one of the things that the reason that Blue Blessings was started was so that Autism Speaks, we could embed our resources into these underserved communities, into these Black churches, into just ministries, period. And to be able to provide them with the support and resources that they need. Because again, even when I'm just going across the country, maybe serving as a service provider, providing our resources, I often I didn't even know Autism Speaks had all of these amazing resources available. And we try to get them out and we put them out, and I'll say that we are doing a much better job of doing that, but they've always been there, on our website. And sometimes it's hard to navigate through the website. So I always just direct people back to our autism response team, so that they literally, they're my champions. They literally do the legwork for families and helping them to find these resources. They find them, they send you links to all of these amazing resources and help you with that information.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's excellent. So we got a question in the chat, and I think that there's actually two answers. This person wants to know if there's a national directory of churches that have ministries, or if not, could this be created? So I'll answer on behalf of Key Ministry. We do have a church locator map on our website. So if you go to the tab at the top of our website that's for families, one of the drop-down options is, find a church. And now this is something that churches have to add themselves to. So if you're watching and you look on the map and you don't see your church, and you know that they're doing a great job, well, let somebody know that we have a form where they can submit themselves to be added to our locator map. But I bet you guys have something too. And so, or you're probably in the process of creating it for ministry kinds of locations. But so Janet, just tell us, if there's anything like that on the Autism Speaks website.
So we don't currently. We have resources available that identify other areas such as service providers, but what I am advocating for is that we also provide, or at least a link to Key Ministry where people can go there,
Well,
and provide those, because we actually support so many different, groups and organizations. And we, as an organization, we have to vet, information that is placed on our site. And so we don't want to steer one group versus another, or someone feeling like I've been left out. But,
right.
For organizations like Key Ministry, who does it well, we can just direct people directly to your site. And so those are things that are currently in creation for Blue Blessings, because Blue Blessings was just rolled out this year. So those are things that are available, and that will be part of that web page of resources that you can go to get help. So where there, you will be able to find links to the toolkits. You will be able to find additional resources. You will be able to find information on how to contact the Autism Response Team, and resources on, for instance, we won't go in and actually train your staff members on how to support best practices a special needs ministry, but we can direct you to a group that does it well, a group that we've vetted, that actually go in. And for those ministries who have the funding available to build out, they may have a whole wing, that they want to build out. We'll be able to direct them to organizations who actually create blueprints and help you identify what contractors you need, for certain work. And so, although we're not, providing that type of service directly, we are a resource provider, and we will be able to provide those resources. So all of that information will be part of the Blue Blessings resources.
Yeah, and I would just also add that a lot of times, if you're, certainly not every time, but if you are, connecting with a provider who is local to you, that provider may know about, ministries or other service type providers that could be helpful to you. And so, always ask the question. You never know
Yes.
what kind of answer you're going to get.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, great question. And if you're participating in the webinar, there's a couple of links that have been added. So be sure to check those out. It's keyministry.org, find a church. Let's see. And then the lady who asked the question says that she goes to a large church that has a special needs ministry, and we're not in the directory. So if you would like, you are free to send me an email, Catherine@keyministry.org, and I can follow up with you afterwards, or go to, let's see, or go to our website and just look for add your church to our database at the tab that says for churches. So either one can work. So, just a gentle reminder, if you have questions, we're getting some in the chat, but if you have some in the Facebook live stream, feel free to add those and we'll work those in. And just thank you for all the great information and questions that is coming up in the chat. So are there, let's see, we're aware of, and we're connected with a lot of different churches across the country. Traditionally white churches, traditionally Black churches, racially diverse churches, and we see some in every, of every type that are doing special needs and mental health type ministry really, really well.
Right.
Are there characteristics of these different kinds of churches that, I don't know, that you would like to highlight, that, some that are doing it well? Because I don't really think that size is the issue. I mean, we kind of think that it's the mindset that matters.
Right.
Because there's a lot of small churches that have started special needs ministry, because that's often how it gets going. I mean,
Yeah.
in your own life. I mean, you have a son on the spectrum, you start doing the grassroots kind of work, and all of a sudden, you're working at a much larger level. So, I don't know. So what are some other characteristics in addition to like having that mindset to care, and to really try to be supportive? Is there anything else that you would identify as important for a church?
Yeah, well, I would say that, in some, ethnic communities, there are a lot of stigmas that are associated with, having a loved one or a child with disability. And so for that reason, sometimes, they're not, they don't have these type of programs, again, because they don't know they need to have them. And then it's just about awareness and education, and, just providing people and helping them to build a sense of community that, we're one and the same, and that we need to make sure that if we provide, resources and support for one, we need to provide it for the other. So it's just about educating, these ministry leaders, because it starts from the top, and making sure that they have everything that they need to create a successful program. So it's not necessarily, one over the other. However, I think that we all can do a better job. Every ministry, every, denomination can do a much better job with, I will say that a lot of times in the Jewish community, I do see a lot of resources that they have. They have so many different special education programs and resources available to their community. And I would like to see more of that, not just in their community, but in other communities as well. So that's certainly something that we want to make sure and, support and provide the resources that they need.
Right. So is that something that is accessible yet on the Autism Speaks website, or could you shoot me an email with links to some of that information? Because one thing that we've learned, trying to advance the cause of mental health and special needs ministry, that everybody has this all figured out. And so it's really helpful to collaborate and have these kind of conversations with people who are maybe working in different spheres. Because, somebody might have a great idea that can really apply, to my church or, to my ministry. So I can definitely follow up with you later, but, if that's something that is available on the Autism Speaks website, definitely let's get it out there for the viewers.
Yes, I will make sure and get that information to you so that you can
Okay.
share it
Okay.
with your viewers.
Okay. Great.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour, and just for those who are watching, definitely shoot your questions over either in the chat or in the Facebook live stream comments. We'll get them worked in, but we do just have a few more minutes with Janet. So, we just really believe that the church is the place. It's just such a vital role in every community. It provides so many supports of every kind. I mean, you think about all the needs that have erupted this year with COVID, with so many people being unemployed and all the issues that, the church is there to help meet those needs. But, we titled this presentation Meeting People Where They Are, because and so that can be, they're already in the church community, or, they could be living with anxiety and depression, or, it can be that that they're a special needs parent, or they're involved with a Black or ethnic, predominant church, which often has a really central role in minority communities. So what do you think, as we're wrapping up today, what are a few simple things that any church could and should be doing to support families with special needs, or to help build community for these families?
Well, one of the things that they can do, for instance, for a lot of loved ones and children and adults who are on the spectrum, they sometimes have some sensory challenges. So be aware of like really loud music, and that's why those quiet rooms are so important. And sometimes in most ministries are unavoidable, because that's just the way that the church service is part of their program. Bright lights, flashing lights. I've actually seen children who are on the spectrum actually go into a full seizure because of flashing lights. Crowds in unfamiliar spaces. And of course, we're in COVID-19 time and all of that has changed. But, when we all do get an opportunity to come back together, those are things that can be, you can be aware of and make those, just simple changes. So, there's a need for, routine and predictability. Have some teaching stories available that, kind of where parents can kind of go through. Some people call them social stories that you can kind of go through and share with your child prior to leaving home, before they even arrive to church, so that they kind of know what the routine is, what to expect. And use visuals such as maps and arrows, signs, or photos, to help support, even those who may be on the spectrum and are independent. Sometimes they just need a little bit of support, maybe not much, but even providing those type of opportunities would be helpful. Fear of judgment, making sure that your congregation and your members understand, that we are all different and we're all the same. And
Right.
so, you can put announcements in your weekly bulletin, or signage that will remind your congregation that all services and events are autism friendly, or they're sensory friendly, so that attendees are more understanding. And that's really what all of this is about: raising that awareness of who surround you, raising the awareness of what types of support are needed, so that if they're in an area or sitting in an area where it may not be an usher, nearby, that there's someone else around them that can understand what's going on and not judge a person if the child blurts out and says something in the middle of service. So I don't think that you always have to take your child out. I've been to ministries where they actually, the kids, they can't sit for long and don't want to, and they may not have a children's ministry, but then they just kind of let the child run up and down the aisle. But when you are in a ministry where people understand that and they are aware of what autism is, what it may look like, and either other disabilities, they are more accepting of that and not judgmental and making people feel like you're not welcome here. So you can talk to the parent or the caregiver, ask them what they're hoping for, include them in your services, let them hand out programs, let them be a part of the services, include them. There are a lot of faith organizations are run like a business, Monday through Friday.
Right.
offer, job opportunities for them. A lot of them are able to work, and which is a huge initiative for Autism Speaks right now, being able to help, identify those best practices of hiring people with autism. So there's just a lot of resources that's there. Find out what their special gifts are. You never know. You may have, someone who's on the spectrum that has an intense interest in music and
Right.
could end up being one of the best musicians that you've ever had,
Right.
in your ministry. So, give them an opportunity, communicate with their families, speak directly to them when you're talking to them, and not just the caregiver, because most of them are, have a huge level of understanding,
Right.
and don't assume that they're incompetent because they are on the spectrum. So,
Right.
you can find out what those needs are, what the environment is like, when you're cleaning, people are cleaning, what type of cleaning supplies are they using, because sometimes their senses are heightened, and if they walk in and they're the first ones there because the family wants to get there early, to get a good seat, and then you walk in and all you smell are chemicals, that could be a sensory assault for someone who's on the spectrum. So it's those type of things that that families need to, and ministries and ministry leaders need to be aware of to help support those that are in their community. So those are just a few things,
Right.
but even when you're creating that sensory friendly space, have some bean bags in there, even if you can just provide headphones for your members when they show up. That's sometimes all the support that someone may need.
Right.
So that when it gets too loud, they can just put their headphones on and they're okay for the remainder of the service. But there are so many different things that you can do and a lot of resources that are available. And, we want to help you identify what those need to be.
Right. Well, and those are all great ideas, and we often advocate for, for parents of children who have sensory issues, or even if they just have really significant anxiety, depression, it's just difficult for them to go somewhere new, is to actually have someone who's like a navigator at your church, who will meet with the family,
Hmm.
during the week when it's not busy, not COVID time, obviously, but
Right, right.
just so that the person who does maybe have that extra anxiety about coming into a new
Hmm.
place, a new environment,
Hmm.
has a chance to be there before it's hectic and there's possibly hundreds or thousands of people. um,
Right,
and the whole idea of involving people in service opportunities, absolutely. I mean, every single person has a gift to give the body of Christ, and so
right.
you just need to get to know them a little bit, and find out what their passions are, and oftentimes that will be a great blessing to your faith community. So
And I would say this, Catherine, that oftentimes when you find a one family who may be impacted by their loved one's autism, you probably have another family in there as well.
right.
There are currently the prevalence rate is 1 in 54 children that are diagnosed in the United States, each and every year. And that number probably is a little bit conservative, but again, you may end up finding a group of families that they can band together and create a support group, where
Right.
they can talk about specifically what their needs are, whether it's mental health needs or, financial support. Autism Speaks, we have given grants. We provide grants to organizations that want to have like sensory friendly rooms each year. There's a certain amount, certain times of the year in which we open the grant process up, and we have distributed grants, to and let me pull this list up because I'm looking at it. So we've probably maybe 40 or 50, ministries that have applied for grants to create, a part of their recreation programs, a part of their, creating a sensory friendly room, so we do have grants available, that people can apply for. They're very competitive, but you can at least still apply for them, and perhaps, receive some funds to help you create the space that you need and the space that you're looking for.
What's a website address for that particular link to the grant
Uh,
information?
the grants are closed right now, but when I will actually provide the link so that you can share it when the link comes back up. There is a page and I can find it, and but it's, they can't apply at this time, but there is a page. I would just have to look for it and
Okay.
send
All
that
right.
to you. Yes.
We'll make sure that we add that to the description of the video when we post it. So Just a few more minutes, but we do have a great closing question. One of the viewers just asked, what words of encouragement would you like to share with maybe the family member who has just learned that they have a special needs child? I mean, that can be a really hard time for families. So, what words of encouragement and hope would you like to leave with that family who may be viewing this video today?
Well, I would say hope, and never give up. The road may seem bleak and glim at times. You will have your challenges, but I will guarantee you that you will have more good days than you have bad. And you just have to understand that the gift that you were given, of being able to be the caregiver of someone who have different abilities is an amazing opportunity. And so it teaches you to be more compassionate. It teaches you to be more patient. Those are all traits that we all need at any time. But then it also allows you to, you will find yourself, and I can speak from experience, of having a love like I've never had before, for this person that I've been entrusted, to care for and nurture and raise. It's a wonderful feeling for me. Has it been challenging? Yes. Do I cry and times are difficult? Yes, yes, and yes. But at the end of the day, when I turn around and I look at that little face and I realize that it's truly a gift. It makes my heart melt, because I know that I am doing all that I'm supposed to do. And we don't always get it right, even with our atypical children. They don't come with a manual,
Right.
so don't feel like you've made a mistake or that it gets so hard and I just need to throw up my hands. And there are times you may feel that way, but always know that you're not alone and that there are supports, resources, help available. But if you don't reach out and ask for it, you won't have access to it. So reach out and ask for help because you're loved, you're cared for, people care about you, and they want to be able to support you. Autism Speaks, we just launched our Year of Kindness in February, where we're asking people to take a kindness challenge. And I don't know if I can share my screen, but I would love to just kind of pull this up and share it with you. We're making a commitment through the end of this year, through 2020, to just create acts of kindness within your community, so that, people will just know you can pledge to be kind. There are activities that you can do in your community and at your home. So I would, encourage you to go to autismspeaks.org/kindness here. And there are different, lesson plans and things that you can do to, help, create kindness within your community. So we asking you to take that pledge to be kind. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And just thank you again, Catherine, so much for having me on your show today.
Well, and it's been just my delight and pleasure to have you, Janet. You're just a wealth of information, and it's just really been a joy to get to know you. So a lady in the chat said that she has taken the pledge to be kind. So hopefully even more people who are viewing this later are going to be taking the same pledge. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Again, we're going to have this video posted on the Key Ministry Vimeo page and our YouTube channel. We'll also have a link to it in one of our webinar settings. I think it's going to be on the parent page. So just look for that later this week. We'll make sure it's up there. And we'll, Janet, if you are interested, can people get in touch with you? Can we share an email address?
Yes. My email address is Janet, JANET.Williams with an S at autismspeaks.org. Feel free to reach out to me anytime.
Okay, awesome. Well, and we hope that that you'll come back next week. We're going to have another really great conversation. Our guest is going to be Teresa Reynolds, who is the director of social work field education at Longwood University in Virginia. She's a therapist and a former K through 12 school social worker. And she's going to be talking with us about what everybody is thinking and feeling right now, which is going back to school in the pandemic and the compounded anxieties that are there for parents, educators, and students, along with some strategies for self-care. So that's another really timely conversation. But for now, Janet, thank you again so much. And
Thank you.
I'm Catherine Boyle with Key Ministry. Thank you all for joining us today. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.